Okay, it being 5 p.m., the Lafourche Parish Council meeting on May 10th, 2022 is hereby called to order. Ms. Carlene, can you please conduct roll call?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Adams is absent. Mr. Grow. Mr. Melvin. Chairman Wendell.
Here.
Mr. Arabi. Mr. Oten. Mrs. Chasson. Mr. Lorraine. President Chasson.
Thank you, ma'am. If everyone would please rise, our invocation will be led by Mr. Lorraine and our Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Grow.
Who
Lord in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, if any member of the public would like to address the council, please fill out a green public wishing to address the council form located by the entry door and get it to Ms. Carlene, the council clerk, prior to that section of the agenda. As we proceed through the agenda tonight, for ordinances, the public will have an opportunity to comment on each ordinance as we go through them, and when we get to resolutions, only the council will discuss prior to voting. With that being said, I have a motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Chasson, to accept the minutes of the April 26, 2022 regular session. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Items B and C, we don't have anything on those.
Yes, sir.
We'll go to item D, proclamations. Number 2, Parish President Archie Chasson to present a proclamation proclaiming May 2022 as Older Americans Month. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whereas Lafourche Parish includes a growing number of older Americans who contribute their strength, wisdom, and experience to our parish. And whereas the parish benefits when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds are welcome, included, and supported. And whereas Lafourche Parish recognizes our need to create a parish that provides services and supports older Americans need to thrive and live independently for as long as possible. And whereas Lafourche Parish can work to build an even better community for our older residents by planning programs that encourage independence, ensuring activities, and are responsive to the individual needs and preferences, and increasing access to services that support aging in place. And whereas Lafourche Parish citizens are urged to recognize the contributions of our older citizens, help to create an inclusive society, and join efforts to support older American choices about how they age in their communities. And now, therefore, I, Archie Chasson, Parish President of Lafourche, do hereby proclaim May 22 as Older Americans Month.
Come on up, Miss Charlene. Thank you, sir, and thank you, Ms. Charlene, for accepting that. Item E, presentations and our updates. Number 3, Parish President to recognize LPG Employee of the Month or WOW Employee of the Month for the month of April. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our Employee of the Month this month is definitely a truly talented part of our team. She's calm, compassionate, knowledgeable, and is always a team player. She sets the bar high for professionalism in the workplace and has many community members that come into the office just to visit her because of her gentle kindness to others. She's always the first person to arrive at the office and often the last one to leave. And as noted by the person who nominated her, she truly has a beautiful and balanced soul. Our Employee of the Month is Miss Nanette Davis.
Second motion.
Thank you again, sir. Item number 4, Mr. Barry Leday, Treasurer,
Mr.
Fire
Chairman.
Protection. Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Jones. I'm sorry.
I just would like to, Ms. Annette, I'd like to thank you for stepping up to the plate and making community action today what it is. And the people are very pleased with you. We stole you from South Lafourche and brought you to Thibodeau. Now you're in Central, but you've been working well to clear out clear through the Community Action Program, and thank you for it. And maybe it's your newlywed husband that keeping you on the move, so we're good. So thank you, Nat.
Thank you for those words, Mr. Jones.
Hey, that's what makes her so good. She learned in South Lafourche.
She didn't learn from Daniel, that's what make it bad.
Okay, item 4, Mr. Barry Leday, Treasurer, Fire Protection District Number 7, to present an annual report. Mr. Leday, please remember to state your name and address for the record, sir. I don't think it's on. Just press the little button.
Barry Leday,
Now it is.
210 Rue Grand Shan, Thibodeau. I'm the treasurer for Fire District 7, which includes 308 Fire Department. We had income of, from 2020, 38,173.25. Ad valorem tax collected, 2021, 107,859.20. Insurance rebate of 7,104.27. Total income, 153, 136.72. We had an expense of 106, 882.28. And we ended up with a balance of 46,254.44. We was watching them funds because of the hurricane, and so we had to hold off some funds at the end of the year. We thank Chief Jared Narcan, which retired after 20 years of service. We had very minor storm damage to the station, which we had one window broken. We were very lucky. We changed 2 hydrants in Beauchene subdivision to 3-way to help out with our rating. And we're gonna just do 2 every year. We got a rating year this year. We completed all our audit and we turned all our reports into the parish. Any questions?
Anybody with any questions for Mr. Barry? Mr. Barry, thank you for what you and your crew does. We definitely appreciate it, and thank you for the report.
Thank y'all.
Okay, item F, legal advisory report. We have none. We'll move into item G, engineers and architects. Any engineers or architects with a report?
All right, good evening. Laura Barnes with GIS Engineering, 197 Elysian Drive in Houma. On me. All right, so updates for this evening. So first one is projects under construction.
Try turning it off and back on, Robbie. There we go.
All right,
You gonna do it from here?
all right.
Okay.
Might just
Want me
need
to do it without?
might just need
Want
the
me to do it
Cliff
without?
Notes
All right,
version.
let me grab my phone.
Oh, it's not gonna,
It'll work like that? Okay.
oh, no, it won't, so.
All right, so if that works, great. If not, I've got it right here. All right, so projects in construction. So the first one is the Cyprion pump station. So of note, they will be testing the new pumps. The testing is scheduled for May 23rd at the manufacturer's facility in Florida. So I believe that we are still on track that that change-out work should begin in June and be a 30-day turnaround. Projects in design. So the first one, Butch Hill, So preliminary design, we did submit that deliverable at the end of April. And just a reminder, that's going to be 8 pumps, 150 CFS per pump, so it's a 1,200 CFS pump station. But that's been submitted for review, so any comments that we get, we'll incorporate that into the final design package. Emergency backup pumps, so LWI, we did open bids in early April. On the 11th, we are still evaluating those, and we'll be getting back to you with a recommendation on a path forward. The Hurricane Ida pump station rehabilitation. So we completed the assessments of 8 pump stations. I say 8, I think that's 6. Edgar Guidry, Magnolia, Natural Gas Pump Station, Old Valentine, Ravenswood, and Company Canal. So that plan is we submit the assessments, they review, and once we get the approval on the cost estimate that we have, then that we get authorized to go ahead with preliminary design. Sanchez Bridge inspection and design. So the final design, all is complete. So at this point, construction is on hold while we are coordinating to get additional funds from DOTD so that this will be a full bridge replacement. On Valentine Pontoon Bridge rehab, the preliminary design is complete. We did submit that to DOTD. They're just going to do a high-level cursory review. We anticipate those comments back mid to late May, and then we can begin with the final design. We also, I know you guys submitted for a RAISE grant application, which I believe those results should be available in August. So the timing will work out well. Once we get DOTD review, we'll go into final. We should be able to wrap that up in about 4 months, which will be a couple of months after the August date for the RAISE grant. And then, yep, Grand Bayou Freshwater. So again, modeling is complete. That was submitted in early February. We are continuing discussions, had a meeting today actually with landowner on location of the pump station, and we're also looking into the potential to be able to dredge out Grand Bayou. So we're looking into alternatives for that. And I believe, yep, last one.
Anybody with any questions for Ms. Laura? Yes, sir.
I do want to say, guys, I want to thank Joe Ogeron, Brian Fontenot, and especially Z and Tanner. We have been working through the capital outlay process on Butch Hill. It's about a $12 million, $15 million pump station by the time this is all said and done. We were able to get $4.5 million this year in P2 dollars, with the rest coming in next year because it's going to be a long enough construction that we could span it between both years with the state money plus the dollars that we're putting up. So just want to give those guys some kudos for sticking that in the budget for us.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else with any questions for Ms. Laura? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Jack.
Good evening, Jack Plaisance with T. Baker Smith, 1100 South Acadia Road. I have a few updates on our east side drainage project. Highlights on this slide you'll see in bold. This is a 300-day contract, and the contract is about 70% complete and right on schedule towards their August 9th completion date. The detailed items in the project: culvert installation is about 75% complete. You'll see a couple of photographs on that work. The clearing and grubbing is complete. Drainage excavation is nearly complete at about 92%, and remaining work includes culvert cleaning, permanent fencing along the property lines. Item 39, I believe, on the agenda tonight is change order number 2. This is a $1,735 increase. I'll have a couple of photographs related to that. This basically was an IDA-related structure that came into the drainage servitude along the 20 Canal. This was identified early on, was not in the contractor's scope of work. We coordinated with Public Works on this as well as the contractor, and were able to have the contractor remove that trailer so that they could continue with their work along the 20 Arpin Canal. So this does go back to about the January timeframe. No additional contract days are on that change order, and I can show you some photographs of the project here next. So here we are towards the end of April, beginning of May, 20 Arpin Canal. In the last 2 weeks, that's mostly what's been going on. These are the cross drains, the crossings along the 20 Arpin Canal, and you can see photographs here, an area near East 70th Street. These are 72-inch culverts replacing culverts that were undersized and not to the proper elevation. A couple of weeks later, or actually about the same time frame here, end of April, beginning of May, another location further down near East 71st Street. These are other crossings that are in our project along the 20 Arpin Canal. These were restricting flow, undersized, not to grade, and part of the project. I think this is the final slide. So I mentioned about the change order. This was what appeared to be a FEMA-type trailer that obviously was impacted by the storm and came into the project footprint. And like I said, we coordinated and had it removed for the value of the change order, about $1,700. So I think that's the last slide. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to respond.
Anybody with anything for Mr. Jack? Mr. Lorraine?
Yeah, Jack, on East 90th Street at the end, a little fella lives back there, called me the other day and said they got a bunch of trash they left toward the levee or wherever. And he said they told him they were gonna come back and take care of it. And also that, I knew you had some negotiations with Mr. Plaisance up in your Plaisance. I don't know if y'all related or not, but that makes no difference. Did y'all iron that out?
For the first point you made, Mr. Daniel, there are several locations where the contractor has stockpiled debris along the route. They are aware and certainly coordinating with us. They will backtrack and clean up those areas before the project's complete. So probably within the next couple of weeks, you'll see those stockpile areas of debris removed from the project site. They've done that so far in an acceptable manner, but there are a few locations where they have to backtrack and clean up. Regarding Mr. Plaisance's ditch, we've had good coordination between Public Works and our contractor. We have a couple of options to try and resolve Mr. Plaisance's concern, and we're continuing to work on that now.
Okay, man. Do me a favor. Text me your number
Will do.
when you get a chance.
I have yours. I'll text it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Anybody else with anything for Jack? Thank you, Mr. Jack.
Thank you. Good evening.
Anyone else? All right. Moving on to item H, public wishing to address the council. Ms. Carlene.
Mr. Greg Sanamo, if you come to the podium, Mr. Greg, state your name and address for the record, and please remember you have 3 minutes.
Take me 3 minutes to open this. Greg Sanamo, 295 Gemini Street, LaRose, Louisiana. I had an administrator once tell me when he gave a speech, or tell the whole audience, I'm not here to upset anybody, but if it makes you think about what you're doing, then I did my job. And that's all I want to do here, is just to let you know what I'm seeing. I would like to address y'all about FEMA, the housing situation, and the government as a whole. As far as I know, no monetary help was given to any of the private trailer parks or campgrounds in our area. Yet government money is being used to set up private individuals who have not been in the rental business with, and I lose my breath a little bit because of the surgery that I had on Friday. So if you catch me breathing hard, it's because I just got to catch my breath sometimes. The rental business with both property lease money and rental property. So they're leasing properties and they're also paying them rental money. I would like the council to give a report on how much public money is being spent on these leases and monthly rentals, if you possibly can, to find out. I have been told by property inspectors, people who are working for the Corps and for FEMA, when they come to inspect my property and my trailer park, that I should get on some kind of a program, that they're paying millions of dollars on a lease, millions on a lease, and they're paying $1,000 per month on campers being put on that property without anyone even living in the camper. On my property, I should say, it's a private trailer park. The tenant is responsible for their rent and their utilities. FEMA gives them nothing except the trailer. I get nothing from FEMA except that they call me to sign a paper to put the trailer. Once the trailer's there, it's my business to take care of the monthly rental. My lots go for $250 a month, before and after the storm. I didn't hike anything up, I didn't jack anything up. It didn't make any sense to me if that was what I needed to do to make a living, then it's what I need to do to make a living. I didn't want to jump on some bandwagon to try and get some kind of extra money for no reason. My lots are 50 by 120. They're not the 25 to 35 foot lots that these campers are stacked up on top of each other. People have room to breathe and they can bring their family in and enjoy where they're staying for the time being. The modular homes that are taken in are nice modular homes. My only problem is that when the modular home is brought in and set up, FEMA lets it go after that. They said, you control it, which is not a problem. I had 2 modular homes brought into my trailer park. Neither one of them was ever lived in. Once the people found out that FEMA would not cover their rent, would not cover their utilities, which they were under the understanding that FEMA was going to do that for them, they didn't want the modular homes anymore, neither one of them. I called FEMA right away, let them know. People don't want it. You can put somebody else in it. They said, nope, we got to tear them down and bring them out. Yeah, this is going to take just a little bit more than 3 minutes. I got some representatives here that can help me out. Huh? Okay, so they said, we're going to have to tear them up and bring them out. So what are you talking about? A contractor told me they're charging y'all $30,000 to $40,000 to put each one in here. And you're going to tear them out and put another one for another $30,000 in the same exact spot? That's what we'll do. I don't understand that. So before that lot was ever paid on or done, $60,000 of our government tax dollars was paid to these contractors. It doesn't make any sense. I asked the guy, why don't you put somebody else in it? He said, they're under contract already. Contracts can be rewritten. Contracts can be voided. Nope, that's not how we do it. All right. Didn't know what else to say except that it doesn't make any sense. He said, well, how about that land you got right there? Why can't you set that up for some trailers? I said, all I got to do is put a sump pump on it and we can do that. This was months ago before they decided on these other big parks that they're making. I said, I can put a sump pump there, it's going to pump sewage straight to the thing. I'll measure it all. He took all the measure, everything, never got a call back on that. I also told him I have 47 acres across the highway, high ground that you can use there, pasture land. It is all open and ready to go if you want to use that. And it'll be the regular $250 a month, not the $1,000. I don't mind getting $250 a month. That is what I charge. He said, oh man, they were going to love this. Never heard anything about that. Then I hear that all these other parks are going up, people that never even thought about putting a trailer park up before until they found out about the $1,000 and all the other extra monies and the rental on the property itself. That is the amazing part to me. $1 million, one of them was reported at almost $2 million or a little bit more than $2 million. They couldn't give me the specifics, even though it's public funds. Second of all, I would like to address the parish council, Lafourche Parish government officials yourself, all of y'all here. I don't understand how, even though it's FEMA and the federal government, you don't know exactly what's going on in your districts. I'm sorry. I was the recreation district person over here. I was, back then it was department head, and I was maintenance. I knew what went on at every one of my buildings and what was bad at every building. I put up parks in every part of the parish. Tennis parks, basketball courts, baseball parks, baseball lights, everything. I had a lot of work to do, but that's what I was paid for, okay? You should know how many trailer parks, new or old, are going into your area. You should know how many FEMA campgrounds they're going to set up. You should know who the trailer parks own to. I pay taxes to y'all. a good amount of taxes. I would come into the office and meet with you as soon as you call. Greg, you want to come? Hey, I'm here. I've met before over here. I met with the whole group over here in the back on a phone call. I have no problem with that. Call us all in, see what we can do. There's a lot that we can offer before we have to build $1 million places. Telling you. And even though it doesn't come out of your budget, it comes out of our tax dollars, guys. It really does.
All righty, Mr. Gregg, we thank you for that. Anybody with any questions for Mr. Gregg? Mr. Melvin?
I have a little bit more if somebody can give me some more time. I would appreciate it.
Mr. Grill relinquishes 3 more minutes to you.
What's that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. All right. The last thing I just want to go over is, like I say, I wasn't asking for anything special. I really wasn't. I paid $2,000 a month for rental equipment. I paid the fuel. I paid everything. And just like everybody else did, I'm not special. I'm doing what I needed to do to get my business back in order, get myself running. FEMA said we can't give you any help tearing any of the trailers out. I had 9 standing out of 80. 9 on blocks out of 80. The rest were either tilted over, flipped over, or blown up. I put 36 to the road with my equipment, with rental equipment, with whatever I could do. I was by myself at that time until my son moved back from Washington. I'm not asking for anything special. I just want the consideration of I have a business. I pay your taxes. I'm registered with you. And all I'm asking is that if you need something from me that I can benefit from and you can benefit from, call. My number is given to my tenants just like it is given to any of y'all. I don't hide from anyone. Okay? That's all I wanted to say.
Mr. Melvin?
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sanamo, for coming. I know we've
I
seen some other
appreciate
folks coming down. And again, I requested a list just so I can educate myself on who are some of the landowners or people whose list you submitted or FEMA got. Did I ever get that email? I don't think I did. Just to see how, again, in my district, just the example, there's a park going up on the Terrebonne side, but it borders my district. So I did get some calls, but it's on the Terrebonne side. I know some others have parks in their district as well. And, I just think FEMA is just another bureaucracy that should never be, but that's my opinion. Too many bureaucracies in the country. We become a country of freebies instead of freedom, right? So,
One of the worst questions I was asked by FEMA themselves was, and my wife told me not to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, because I don't believe what this guy told me. He said, are you on good terms with the parish president? I said, I sure am. I said, but that should not make a difference. That should not make, I don't care if I'm Orchie's worst enemy. I should be given the consideration of programs just like anybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Otang?
Yes, so I don't know that Greg offered anything new than what we've heard for the last 4 or 5 months, that it's still the federal government that we're chasing, and it sounds like it's another business plan. Somebody's coming in and talk to them about their business plan, not so much focus of we need to get people into housing. But I will say, I'm not sure about these numbers of millions of dollars, because today I was told, I was just talking to Parish President, it's $40 per unit. So I don't know, there's so many rumors. I can tell you yesterday, I got a constituent call from Myrtle Drive wanting to know, was told that FEMA had purchased property on Highway 3 and was building Section 8 housing. I also got a call, it's right at about a month ago on a Saturday morning, that FEMA had purchased property on Highway 1 south of Valentine to house illegals. I said illegals, so was it like murderers and rapists? They're like, no, I don't know, they just said illegals. So I'm guessing it was related to the storm. So anyway, there's so many stories out there. We continue to hear them, we continue to go in circles. I can tell you, Greg, that I have no idea, and they often use the same as what happened with HIPAA, with COVID. They can't tell us. They can't tell us people's information. So I really don't know. I'm just in the dark as much as you. Of course, like I said, that's from the business side. I'm more the side of the people that actually need housing. And some of those, I am glad to say that the lady that I've referenced, the 80-year-old, she is in a FEMA trailer. So I'm happy to report finally, we finally got her one in her yard. But anyway, I wish I knew as much as he does. I'll tell you that.
Thank you, Mr. Otang. Thank you, Mr. Gregg. Ms. Carleen?
Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
If I can real quick. Greg, if you tell me who that FEMA guy was, I'd appreciate it, because I'd like to report that up to the GFO. The guy who we have with us, I don't think would ever say that, who handles most of the, but you just text it to me or come find me after the meeting. I don't, look guys, I think I don't think any of you have sat in on them, but every week we have a housing call with FEMA, and it's really just, it's gotten to be boredom these days because there's not a whole lot left going on the big housing side. But none of that is revolved around how much money they pay people. And frankly, I could care less how much money they pay you. If they pay you $1 million to put 50 trailers on your site, then number one, good for you. And number two, that's 50 people we have in housing, right? I'm with Councilman Ote on this. This is more about getting people in housing than it is about numbers for me. So I don't know. I'll be more than happy to send you the list of what we sent to FEMA that have all the trailer parks on it, because it says Htmpo Trailer Parks. I know you're on it. And Bo, I'll send that to you guys when we get past this. We actually scanned it. It was part of a Freedom of Information Act request we got during the week, so we sent it out to a few folks. But that's what we sent to FEMA in the beginning. So we knew where those existing trailer parks were. We knew where there's a tab in there that talks about where the community sewage was, so we knew we can hook into community sewer if we had to. But yeah, I doubt we're paying millions of dollars for stuff. And I don't think, after the meeting, it was a meeting when I was in Washington, D.C. that Mitch handled when Phil Price came in here and gave that presentation. And we didn't have that many people that showed up to protest the group site. We had more trailer park owners that were mad because they either weren't on a list or were trying to get on a list. And because of that, we've actually seen the number of the number of campers that were supposed to go into group sites shrink, because they've gone back and they found these trailer park owners and said, hey, how much can you take, or how many can you take, right? And yes, some of them are squeezed in. We're squeezing them in kind of tight to make more room for people. But if you have that available space, then let's have that conversation, Greg. I'll get with Wade all day long and we'll talk about it. But they've gone back to those trailer park owners who showed up to that meeting, and we've dwindled that some 500 trailer number or modular number down to, I think the last number we had for what was supposed to be the group site in Valentine was only supposed to be 150 or 160 units. And even that's going away. So we're getting past a lot of those bigger group sites now because we've been able to work with those other trailer park owners. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Lorraine.
Yes. First of all, FEMA makes a lot of promises, and that's where it's at. They don't fulfill all their promises. I got a trailer park 250 feet from my house. Never bothered me. The guy got wiped out. I'm talking about wiped out. FEMA went over there and measured out 30 spots. Probably put a lot more, but 30 spots, and he told them, don't rent this out to anybody. Leave this for us. And he did have some people go and says, man, I need to put an RV. He said, no, I can't. But you know what? He called me the other night, and he says he still never heard nothing from FEMA. So it's a lot of promises. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I got more trailer parks in my district than the rest of the whole parish. And I was a firm believer of using the spaces you had before you created something new. And that's not what's happening. So, you know what? I'm gonna let the people figure it out. And we'll take it from there. I named every trailer park that I had, and I left some out. Me and Terry came to the hearing with FEMA, and we both brought that out. Basically, what their answers were all around us. They never gave us a direct answer. They went around us. And try to call them. Try to call them. See what you get. And don't tell me that the federal government is going to come here and do what they want. Federal government can come here, whatever they want, but somebody has to guide them. They can't just come over here and take over. Feds or no feds. Think about it. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Ms. Carlene.
Miss Ann Sanamo, if you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Miss Ann, please remember you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Ann Sanamo, 295 Gemini Street, LaRose, Louisiana. I'm here on a short message, and that is I've experienced what it takes to go through this whole rigor of winding your way through FEMA. And as a resident here in Lafourche Parish, I don't just speak for myself or my trailer park, or I hope I'm coming here to speak to all of you, for people that either won't, can't, don't, afraid to come here and speak because they've just never done that in person before. To give consideration when you go out into your state conventions and your national conventions to speak up on behalf of the people here. We're not the only ones that have all the emergencies that go on. Of course, it's all over the United States. And we get tunnel vision sometimes, and we think it's all about us. Well, when we get to this point 9 months later, my in-laws, who just passed away 3 weeks ago, never got their camper, never got told they would get their camper, and I'm the one that housed them, as well as went through the guidelines of providing A, B, C, D to not one person, not two person, 3 people. I have 9 instances of trying to get them to the point of having a temporary place to live while this is going on. And the sad part about it is we hear the term of we get fed up and we give up. They did it the hard way. They gave up, they got fed up, and they died, never being able to resolve this issue. So please use your power as our representatives to move this forward, state, federal, and have them look at the whole process. How do we address this in a more timely fashion 9 months down the road that we can house our residents temporarily, more conveniently and easily? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ann. Anyone? Mr.
Mr.
President.
Chairman, two quick points. One, and I'll say this to Ms. Ann, and I've said this before, if you guys know anybody who still has a housing issue that's still fighting that, they can call the EOC and talk to Ms. Ann. We still have a guy who that's all he does is chase housing issues for us. Typically, all we need is your name, your address. If you have your FEMA registration number, that really helps. What we've seen in a lot of these cases that have drug on is that FEMA sets these damage thresholds, that you had to have $10,000 of damage on your house to qualify for housing. The FEMA inspector goes out and he says, we only had $8,700 of damage. So there's a way we can walk that up the chain in most cases. So if you know of those, send them to me. Send them to Ms. Ann, and we could track those down. It takes me a couple of days by the time Wade works it up the system and then gives me that information back. But we always reach out back to that person who called to try to figure that out. And secondly, I will say that we've tried for months now to tell FEMA how they've done this wrong, right? And what we always get back is that after Laura and Delta, it took them 8 months to get the first trailer to Southwest Louisiana. We got ours in 60. They're happy about that, and I still can't understand why. But in a lot of ways, I think we're lucky that we are at the point we are, although there's still a lot of people who need it. But when we look at what happened to our friends in Southwest Louisiana, it was much worse.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right, moving to item I, council's reports, news, and announcements. Anyone with anything to report or announce? Mrs. Chasson.
Yes, already the grass cutting on 3235, it's bad. And I think it caught us quicker this year than last year. I don't know why, but it's very hard to see in the upper LaRose area, especially where the Rouse's is. A lot of people going in and out of that intersection, and then they can't see over that grass. So if we could get on DOTD, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay, we did have something that came up. Councilman Grove has served on the Htmpo Committee, which is a policy committee, since January 2020. Due to some conflicts, he's been required to step down, and we need a council representative to serve on that committee. This committee meets 4 times a year to discuss transportation and related issues. It's a decision-making body for all MPO funding. Councilman Arabi has stated he would like to serve in this capacity. Can someone make a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Lorraine. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Okay, last call. Any announcements from the council members? All right, moving to item J, public hearing and ordinances for ratification. Have a motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Arabi to open public hearing. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Item 5, ordinance approving the issuance of not exceeding, this is going to be deferred to July 12th. Item 5 is deferred to July 12th. Item 6, ordinance approving a servitude agreement between Happy Cow Cattle Company LLC and Lafourche Parish government in the Lockport area, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relative documents. Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Item number 7, ordinance providing for a 2022 supplemental appropriation 22-007 within the 2022 operations and maintenance budget and capital outlay budget to adjust the budget and to add capital outlay projects, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said transactions as provided by Article 6 of the Lafourche Parish Home Rule Charter. Motion by Mr. Jones, second by Ms. Chasson. Mr. Chasson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this, as promised, is the large supplemental that takes care of all the stuff that was not in the budget because we shrunk it back due to the hurricane. So this puts a lot of the projects that you guys had wanted back in the budget. There were a couple of, I think the recreation side, that got shoved into the 5-year plan because we were up against a hard push on the recreation side. But if things start to come back in, I'm pretty sure we're going to be able to accomplish that. I also want to say that this includes up to a 7.5% increase for the employees. So we ran the numbers on COLA increases, which is typically for us about 2.5%. When you look at the consumer price index, COLA this year was about 5%. So we were able to pull that off, plus their regular 2.5% merit increase. So we're gonna be able to, they'll max out at 7.5%, but it includes that increase for the employees in the budget as well. So if you have any specific questions about what's in there, we can talk about it, but that's the overall big picture.
Thank you, President Chasson. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Melvin. To close public hearing, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Item number K, proposed ordinances. Mrs. Chasson.
Number 8, proposed ordinance approving a servitude agreement between Horace P. Savoy Jr. and Tila G. Savoy and the Lafourche Parish government in the Raceland area, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. T. Araby for administration. Number 9, proposed ordinance approving a temporary servitude agreement between Byron Talbot and the Lafourche Parish government in the Thibodaux area, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. A. Melvin for administration. Oh, he stepped out. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. 10, proposed ordinance providing for a 2022 supplemental appropriation 22-008 within the 2022 operations and maintenance budget and capital outlay budget to cover the additional costs for the project titled Cyprion Pump Rehab, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said transactions as provided for by Article 6 of the Lafourche Parish Home Rule Charter. Number 11, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation
Ms.
in the
Chasson.
parish.
Item number 10, I'll move for Mr. Melvin as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Jim Wendell on number 10. 11, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Public Buildings. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. 12, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Council on Aging. Jim Wendell for administration. 13, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Criminal Tax. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. 14, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Drainage, Health, and Library. Jim Wendell for administration. 15, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Drainage parish-wide. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. 16, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Fire Protection District Number 1. Mr. Terry Araby for administration. 17, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Fire Protection District Number 4. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. Number 18, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, Fire Protection District 7. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. Number 19, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, Fire Protection District Number 9. Mr. Terry Araby for administration. 20, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, General Alimony. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. Proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche Health Unit. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. Number 22, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, Library 014, Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. 23, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, Library 017, Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. Number 24, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, recreational facilities, Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. Number 25, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, Road District Number 1, Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. 26, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, Special Service District Number 1, Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. 27, proposed ordinance levying and imposing taxes for 2022 on all the property subject to taxation in the parish of Lafourche, Veterans Memorial District, Ward 10. Mr. Daniel Lorraine for administration. 28, proposed ordinance to scratch 2. We're amending ordinance number 6612 that amended Chapter 2, Article 2 of the Code of Ordinances, Section 2-34 and 2-36, to establish and define wards and precincts and establishing polling places. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. Number 29, proposed ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Sections 2-34 and 2-36 of Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances to establish and define wards and precincts and establishing polling places due to merging precincts, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. 30, proposed ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 2-36, precinct polling places of Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances, changing the polling location for Ward 1, Precinct 2, and Ward 2, Precinct 9 to the Htmpo Health Unit, and to further establish the effective date of same, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Jerry Jones for administration. Number 31, proposed ordinance amending ordinance number 6517, that approved a lease agreement between St. John Volunteer Fire Department District 6 and the parish of Lafourche for leasing the premises located at 2429 Parish Road, Thibodaux, Louisiana, 70301, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. M. Grove for administration. Number 32, proposed ordinance amending ordinance number 5020 that approved a lease agreement between Vigilant Chemical and Hose Fire Company and the parish of Lafourche for leasing the premises located at 921 North Canal Boulevard, Thibodaux, Louisiana, 70301, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. M. Grove for administration. 33, proposed ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 2-36, precinct polling places of Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances, correcting the polling location name for Ward 5, Precinct 2 to Lafourche Crossing 308, Volunteer Fire Department, and to further establish the effective date of same, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. A. Melvin for administration. Proposed ordinance 34, amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 2-36, precinct polling places of Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances, changing the polling location for Ward 2, Precinct 15 to Lafourche Crossing 308, Volunteer Fire Department, and to further establish the effective date of same, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. A. Melvin for administration. Number 35, Proposed ordinance amending ordinance number 3822 that approved a lease agreement between Lafourche Crossing 308 Volunteer Fire Department and the Parish of Lafourche for leasing the premises located at 691 Highway 308, Thibodaux, Louisiana 70301, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. A. Melvin for administration. 36, proposed ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 2-36, precinct polling places of Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances, changing the polling location for Ward 10, Precinct 13 to Cutoff Elementary School, and to further establish the effective date of same, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. Proposed ordinance amending ordinance number 6533 that approved a lease agreement between the Lafourche Parish School Board and the Parish of Lafourche for leasing the premises located at 177 West 55th Street, Cutoff, Louisiana 70345, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration. 38, proposed ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2, Section 2-36, precinct polling places of Lafourche Parish Code of Ordinances, changing the polling locations for Ward 10, Precincts 3 and 12 to South Lafourche High School, and to further establish the effective date of same, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Mr. Jim Wendell for administration.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chasson.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just want to caution all these precincts that you're fooling with, when you're going to come back and finalize all this, I'm assuming you need some accessibility that needs to be checked out by the state. Don't get caught without it. I'm assuming, am I right? It was brought to my attention. So don't come with your ordinances next week and you didn't have that accessibility study. Because there's a possibility you might run into a problem. So I would just check that in the next 2 weeks before we adopt the ordinances.
Have we looked into that? Anyone with any comment?
I mean,
Mr.
I don't know which one 38 specifically refers to. But I mean, I'm thinking if we're going to South Lafourche High School, then they're gonna have handicap ramps and it's gonna be ADA accessible. Yeah, so Mitch is whispering in my ear that all the locations are being moved to currently approved locations. So we're gonna be okay.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Thank you, President Chasson. Item L, resolutions. Number 39, resolution approving change order number 2 from LA Contracting Enterprises LLC for the project titled East Side Drainage Improvements and increasing the contract price by $1,735 and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said change order and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Ms. Chasson, second by Mr. Jones. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Item 40, resolution requesting the Lafourche Parish Council to approve the Lafourche Parish Head Start bylaws and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer any and all relevant documents. Motion by Ms. Chasson, second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Item 41 has been pulled. Item 42, resolution accepting the low quote for Foray Contracting Group LLC in the amount of $18,768.60 for the project titled Thibodaux Library awning repairs and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer an agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Gross, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Item 43, resolution approving an agreement between Lafourche Parish Government and Terracon Consultants Incorporated for grant writing services for the fiscal year 2023 EPA Brownfields Assessment Grant and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Groves, second by Mr. Ota. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Groves.
So I have a question about, this the same guys that are doing that deal down in Thibodaux, Brownfield?
I don't know that if it's the same company
I thought it was Brown.
that's out. So it's all being done through the Brownsfield grant program. I'm just not
Right.
sure what company.
Okay, well, yeah,
South Central
I'm just-
used. But yeah,
I it's just more of a general question, like we have these partnerships with like SLEC or South Central Planning and all, where we have cooperative endeavors, we pay, for their services. I thought the brownfield thing that came to me was initially maybe from somebody with South Central Planning, but it takes so long for these things to happen. And I noticed that there's no cost to Lafourche Parish residents by doing these things, so they just help get everything. We have a grant writer, but we're willing to take any help, especially if it's free. I understand that. But are we reaching out to the VICs and Belanger and all them to, hey, are y'all soliciting grants for us and stuff like that? Can they
Yes,
help?
so I've never had a conversation with Select about Brownsfield. Typically, it'll either come through South Central and Leslie.
Leslie Long.
Yeah, in this particular case, Terracon came to us. There's a huge, because of the infrastructure bill, there's a huge pot of Brownsfield dollars. So they're gonna complete the application for us for free based on some initial site assessments that they know places we could clean up in Lafourche. And then should the grant be awarded, then the grant pays for their services on the back end. So there's still no cost to the taxpayers, but they approached us in this deal. So we were like, well, if it's free, it's for me, right? So.
And we should go to, for the council, so this is for hey, I knew they was abandoned oil well, or this was formerly a gas station, this property sitting there, I know those tanks aren't good because they hadn't had power.
Yep.
We could be eligible for money to get that stuff up, or
That's
at
right.
least the study for the property assessment. So we should, in our own districts, look for sites that may have some EPA damage or something like that from years.
That's right.
back.
And from what we've kind of talked with Terracon about and looked in the Brownsfield program, the kind of the Rayson area, so Mr. Araby's district has a huge play available because there's a whole bunch of nifty stuff in there. That back end of Thibodeau in your district, Mr. Grow, where the old QPL building and stuff is, there's some other stuff in there that can be rehabbed, but if you have some other stuff, look, when we built the Wallace Center, we cleaned up that property with a Brownsfield grant because it was an old boat shop or something like that. So if you got some specific stuff in your area, I think it almost goes down to we can look on a large scale level, if there's a place we want to revitalize that has 10 or 15 derelict structures on it, we can even go that route as well. So there's a whole host of options.
It's not just under the ground, let's say in Thibodeau at Corner Drive in Acadian, there's that plant that used to be, I don't know.
Old QPL, roach spray.
Yeah,
plant.
but none of that stuff was underground, but it's kind of a hazardous.
It's
people
leaching.
kind of work.
That's right.
That's something that would go for this?
Yeah, and that's one of the sites we're looking at.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Well, I'm all in.
Thank you, Mr. Grow. Thank you, President Chasson. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Item 44, resolution approving a cooperative endeavor agreements between the Department of Children and Family Services and Lafourche Parish Government for the operation of a disaster supplemental nutrition assistance program during a declared emergency, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreements and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Mr. Adams. Item 45, resolution amending resolution number 22-036 that approved an agreement between the Office of Community Development, Division of Administration, and the Lafourche Parish Government for the Lafourche Parish Emergency Backup Pumps for Lafourche Parish Pump Stations, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Item 46, resolution approving a brokerage services agreement between Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services Incorporated and Lafourche Parish Government for premises pollution liability coverage, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Grow, second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Mr. Adams. Item 47, resolution approving a use of facilities agreement between Lafourche Parish Government and Moses Community Center for the Lafourche Parish Recreation Summer Program, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Jones, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Mr. Adams. Item 48, resolution approving an agreement between Lafourche Parish Government and GIS Engineering LLC for professional services for the project titled Hurricane Barry State Allocations, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Araby. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Mr. Adams. Item 49, resolution approving an agreement between Lafourche Parish Government and GIS Engineering LLC for professional service for the project titled West 11th Street Drainage Improvements, and authorizing the parish president to sign, execute, and administer said agreement and any and all relevant documents. Motion by Ms. Chasson, second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Mr. Adams. Item 50, resolution appointing 1 member to the Lafourche Parish Animal Shelter Advisory Board representing Council District 1. Motion by Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, who do you have?
At this time, I'd like to recommend Major Elliott Day.
Major Elliott Day, second by Mrs. Chasson. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Mr. Adams. Item 51, resolution accepting and approving the report required by in compliance with Article 6, Section 6 of the Home Rule Charter. Motion by Mr. Gross, second by Mr. Otan. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams.
And Mr. Howard wanted to speak on
On which one?
51.
51. Mr. Harold, you still want to speak on 51 even though we're done with it?
I was just here to answer any questions, apparently no one has any questions.
All righty, thank you, sir. Item in, a motion, number 52, motion to appoint the Daily Comment as the official journal for the Lafourche Parish Council for the period from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 at the rate of $5.50 per square of 100 words. Motion by Mr. Grow, second by Mr. Jones. Anybody with any discussion? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence, that absence being Mr. Adams. Item N, Parish President, Department Heads, Directors, or Managers' Reports, Presentations, and/or Updates. Item 53, Department of Public Works Representative to present a report. Mr. Barone, how are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and get started.
I don't have my little 3 hash marks.
Starting with the Htmpo Field Office,
I just thought of,
the golf rental, drainage ditch, clean ditch,
really?
Cherry Drive, repair potholes. This is in the Country Club, the concrete line ditch, clear vegetation. Parkside Drive, repaired slide. Thoroughbred Park outfall, remove trees from the outfall. And also from the canal. Thoroughbred Park Drive, swept roadside ditches. Moving to the Choctaw Field Office, the Benoit Ditch, remove fallen limbs and debris. Swept roadside ditches along the Choctaw Road. Landry Lane, swept roadside ditches. Orange Grove Road, installed driveway culvert. Lejean Canal, remove debris from the canal. Moving to the By Blue Field Office is the By Blue Bypass Road, clean culverts. Lake Long Drive Pump Station, we raised the discharge pipe there and you see the welders fitting it back in. And then because we removed that discharge pipe, we had to repair the levee. Moving to the Raceland Field Office is Pelche Drive, swept roadside ditches. Market Street, swept roadside ditches. And clean culverts. Violet Street, swept roadside ditches. This is the Acadia outfall. We swept this outfall. We did the downstream side, which you'll see on the right-hand side, a few months back, and then the upstream side here most recently, a few weeks back. There was also a little negative Facebook post about this outfall where a resident had a lot of complaint and I guess wanted to question the integrity of our employees and their education and their background. So with all of that being said, I just wanted to show a graph. This is the survey data from that outfall. There was claims that we weren't digging it correctly, we weren't helping upstream residents, and we were trying to make water drain uphill. You'll see on the left side of this graph, that is, the red line will be the invert of the ditch or the elevation of the ditch. Left side's downstream, right side's upstream, and the blue is the water line in that ditch. So our employees did a fantastic job. I wish they would get a public apology, and this just shows the good work they did on that outfall. Moving on to the Lockport Field Office, this is Lafourche Drive. Remove collapsed landscape culvert. Bellevue Avenue and Cardinal Drive, replace cross street culvert. This is another interesting situation. This is the Lockport Field Office. This is East 18th Street, where we reset a driveway culvert. Our employees were called out on the Thursday before Easter. We were off that day. We had 2 employees who stepped up to the plate and went and do it. This is important, and this is imperative as to why we have permits and regulations here. You'll see that we installed 40 feet of this driveway culvert on the left-hand side. The resident went in after us and installed an additional 40 feet of landscape culvert without a permit. We were never notified, never went and checked on it. They put no fill on the top of it. Because they put no fill, these culverts floated. In turn, floated and pulled all of the culverts out of the driveway. This resident was stuck on their side of the driveway and called us at 6 o'clock in the morning. So just to recap to everybody, this is why it's so important. Also, on top of all of this, it cost the parish somewhere around $1,656 to repair this after it was already done. So it's imperative that people follow the rules and regulations and go through the culvert permit process. A culvert permit would have cost, $50 for this, and we would have gone out and inspected, but instead it cost the parish $1,656, and 2 guys didn't have their day off. East 19th Street, installed driveway culvert. East 23rd Street, repaired smashed driveway culvert. Moving to the Galliano Field Office, this is the cutoff lift bridge and greasing of the cables. East 45th Street, installed driveway culvert. West 45th Street, replaced cross culvert on outfall. West 55th Street, replaced driveway culvert. This is the Golden Meadow boat launch, repaired the wharf. And this is one of the 2 wharfs. The other one's beyond repair. The Sidney Sanders outfall, graded right-of-way. West 161st Street, replaced collapsed driveway culvert. West 216th Street, shred trees on the drainage canal. We only have one major project that was conducted by the maintenance contractor, and this is Chestnut Ridge Drive road repairs. There was actually a failure in the road, and when we opened up the road, we found that there was a failure in the subsurface drainage and the culvert passing underneath the road. So this was an intricate project. You'll see we had to do sheeting for the men to be able to get down in the hole and work on it. There's a lot of moving parts here. We had a neighbor's fence, a roadway, and a very tight area to work. They did a great job. It took a little while. And moving on to the Department of Public Works office personnel, we had 2 permanent servitude agreements, 3 major subdivision inspections with 3 property redivision reviews, 2 major subdivision reviews, 30 culvert permits, and 1 fence permit were issued. 39 online work requests were received, 60 permits were reviewed for compliance. Currently with engineering, we have 16 projects in design phase, 7 projects under construction, 4 projects that are currently out to bid, 1 received today, and 1 completed project since we last spoke. As far as the new online work order system, we hosted a training of employees on 4/28. It went very well. We also followed up with individual trainings last week. We had an internal go-live date of Monday on 5/9, and we plan to go live for public on 6/1. And that is it. Any questions?
Thank you, Dylan. Mr. Melvin.
Thanks, Dylan, I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I know on the ditch off of Parkside, I received calls from the landowner we met. I just need to get another date, and I'll text you because there's 2 major outfalls. It's the one right behind the houses, and I mean, in my opinion, I'm not an engineer, but it just seems like a lot of the stuff for Dugal was dug too steep, so therefore we're having some cave-ins. So behind this guy's house, I'll just be texting you about maybe meeting there. Just have a look and see what we can do. Maybe he said he don't mind losing a little bit of land, but he don't want to keep fluffing in, so I don't know if it's going to be
I'm gonna be on that part of the parish Thursday morning. I have an appointment at 8 o'clock on the very northern end, so we can swing by after if that works for you.
I'll be at Fouchon at 6 that morning.
Okay.
Maybe another.
We'll catch
Thank
you.
you, Mr.
We'll catch you
Melvin.
eventually.
Mrs. Chasson.
Hey, Dylan.
ma'am.
Forgetting the name of the subdivision right now, but off of LA1, behind the cutoff post office, there was a cement cul-de-sac that we did some work on. The place?
Plantation Drive?
Yeah.
Plantation?
Are we finished with that project?
That's completed,
It
yes,
is
ma'am.
completed. You didn't put it in here.
It was very recently completed.
Oh,
We submit all our pictures for the first of the
Cameraman
month. It
went
was
there.
very recently completed, but I'll have it on there.
But it is completed?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you so much for
You
that.
got it.
Thank you, Mrs. Chasson. Mr. Araby.
Mr. Dillon,
Yes, sir.
I just want to thank your staff and the field officer in Raceland, the field officer in Lockport for the job that they do in my district. Seems like I'm getting some of the work that I put in for quite some time back, and it's getting done now, and I appreciate that. I understand y'all moved on the Pelican outfall. Y'all getting ready to get started on that. Y'all moved the piece of equipment over there. Is that correct?
That was started Monday.
And y'all was on Highway 654 today, I believe, cleaning out that little ditch and that
Yes,
messed
sir.
up culvert by the fire station.
We started that Monday as well.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank y'all for all the jobs y'all doing in my district. Thank y'all.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Araby. Mr. Grow.
Just two quick things. With grass starting to grow, obviously, are we ramped up with all our equipment in Thibodeau? Okay, to maintain the ditches with the arms and things like that? Okay.
Yes, sir. We have a few tractors that we need to replace and purchase. We're working through that. There's 5 on the list, like parish-wide. I think only one of those is in the Thibodeau area, so, but everything is up and running currently. I'm gonna knock on wood before I finish saying that, but,
And with the new truck that pumps the, cleans out the culverts and all,
Yes,
is
sir.
there like y'all have a list of stuff that y'all been wanting to get to, or, I mean, are things moving every day? I
we
mean,
do, this week it hasn't moved, but we're getting back on that, early next week. If you have something hot
Yeah.
you want us to hit, send it
Yeah.
to me, we'll get it on the list. We're trying to move it around. It's been in Thibodeau since we got it, since we started, but we are gonna start moving in
Right.
other areas.
Right. It's more, I mean, it's nothing to take the truck, I mean, Robbie can tell you, he's got a neighbor that cuts his grass and dumps it in, I mean, there's no reason to take the truck out. The guy shouldn't be dumping his grass and raking it into the ditch. It doesn't help anybody, you know, but maybe go down Robbie Street, go Oak Lane.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Chairman, I will say, Mike, to your point about grass cutting, we have been having a lot of conversations with the sheriff's office about the inmate crews, and working them back out. They have an SRO, that's gonna leave school when school ends up gonna work full-time through the summer with an inmate crew. So I have Dylan and Troy Babin, who's the new operations guy, working through a scheduled list of where those inmates need to be every couple of weeks. We know you have a couple of ditches in your district, and so does Mr. Melvin, that we constantly have to weed eat. So having that on a continual schedule should hopefully reduce the calls you guys and we are getting.
Thank you, Mr. Grow and President Chasson. Mr. Lorraine.
Are you familiar with West 118th? Was there something done there?
I'm not familiar with it. I know there was,
3 weeks ago, I turned in, there's a giant hole at the end of the street. I talked to Archie about it. I think he told them West 18th instead of 118th.
So I messed that one up and told Bruce West 18th instead
You
of 118th.
don't think I know what goes on?
The issue we're having is that, we have a stockpile of recycled material that is somewhat being held hostage right now, and that's what we would use to fix the road.
I
So if you
understand
can
that,
help us
but you
get that
could take
recycled
that
material.
maintenance road crew and send them to fix that. I mean, look, since when, we're in the year 2022 and you're gonna bottom out? Since when? Come on.
we have started fixing a lot of those areas. While waiting on material, we were saw cutting the road. So everything's saw cut and ready to be
But-
pulled out. As soon as we get the material, we're gonna start pulling out.
But
and
we're
dumping
part
it.
of that maintenance
And
crew too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we have been starting to put limestone on those holes while waiting, so.
Right,
We
try
are
to
working
put
on it.
something. I
Yep.
mean, that's 2-3 weeks. And Archie knows, at least he admitted that he made a mistake. Sure.
We'll mark
Okay.
that down in the record. Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, it was brought to my attention under item J, public hearings, that on items 6 and 7, the ordinances, both of them which were approved, I did not call for the 3 public comment as usual.
Mr.
So-
Jim, can I
Yes,
make
sir.
a comment on that?
Yes, sir.
So this happened when in my first term as a council member, and someone protested it. The parish president at the time sent and got an opinion from the state attorney general. His office sent back that because we did have open for public wishing to address the council before those ordinances were read, we were fine. So I'll just leave you with that.
Okay,
I do have that opinion in my bag.
okay. We are fine, but anybody, we can deviate and comment if anybody wants to comment. Anybody need to comment on items 6 or 7? Then we'll go with that opinion, and thank you, sir. Item 54, Mr. Samuel Shanklin, Solid Waste Manager, to present a presentation. Mr. Shanklin.
First of all, good evening, Councilman, Councilwoman, President, Administration. I know. So recently we held our Household Hazardous Waste Day. I want to share some information with you guys. So we got our overview. We're going to talk about event purpose, event layout, event photos, the event final report, which they calls the treatment method report, final report summary, comparison, and we're going to highlight some improvements, what we did bad and what we could do good. So the event purpose. The event was held Saturday, April 9th, 2022. This event allowed the residents in service collection day. The residents were allowed to bring in hazardous materials to be properly disposed of, in exception to ammunition, explosive, firearms, fire extinguishers, appliances, furniture, power tools, radioactive devices, liquid containers larger than 5 gallons. The majority of the items that we saw they brought in was tires, waste oil, paint, electronic devices, and batteries. So the event layout, we kind of like made this layout to kind of like make a plan on how we want to lay this thing out, which some of it went according to plans and some of it didn't. So this is actually a drone image of what the actual event. There's also some more pictures and some more drone pictures. So moving forward, we're gonna go into the event final report, treatment method report. Now this chart is kind of confusing. It was confusing for me, so what I did, I broke it down a little bit for layman terms so we can understand a little bit better. So all it says, the event final report summary was 43% recycled at a weight of 17,754 pounds. 49% of fuel blended at a weight of 15,534 pounds. 7% was incinerated at a weight of 2,484 pounds. 1% was treatment and weight of 304 pounds. The 1% treatment is kind of confusing to me, but that's what the company put in at 1%. The total collection weight was 36,076 pounds. Total of vehicles we had was 276 vehicles served. So the comparison to previous events was 2019, the total collected weight, 23,356 pounds, versus 2022, which we are now, the total weight collected was 36,076 pounds. So that's a delta of 12,720 pounds difference from 2019 to 2022. 2019 total cars served was 340 versus 2022 was 276. The delta of that was 74 vehicles difference from 2019 to 2022. So the highlights, what we thought we did good, I think we had a good resident participation. We had good contractor management, which was the company that was doing the event. Improvements, I think we could have a little better advertisement. We could do better on our entrance and exit and drop station signs. We felt we could do a little bit more participation from, I guess, our constituents. Also, 18-wheeler tire bin, and I'm explaining this to you. The 18-wheeler tire bin was easy for us because when we put the tires in the tire bin, this coming time, we didn't have 18-wheelers, so we had to wait for the truck to come back and pick it up, and it took a couple of days. Versus having an 18-wheeler, load the tires up and takes it the same day. So we also said the better management of waste container, the same thing with the waste bins. They brought the waste bins here, and it took a couple of days for them to move it. So that was kind of like thing with the office guys getting in the next morning. Questions, I'm ready for them.
Anybody with anything for Mr. Shanklin? Mr. Araby?
I just want to thank your staff for a job well done right there. Those guys and ladies they've been doing this for quite a few years, and we get good compliments about them throughout the public, and I just want to thank them for a job well done.
Thank you. I feel I got a pretty good team.
Thank you, Mr. Araby. Mr. Grow?
Did you get any tractor tires, like from farmers and stuff like
Yes,
that?
we
Okay,
did,
'cause
yes.
I know that's been an issue. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grow. Mr. Lorraine?
Yeah, it's been a while since we had one of these. A few years ago, we'd do 2 of them a year. One in South Lafourche and one over here. And they would do well, but since COVID and Ida, this is the first one in a long time. But I'm gonna kind of touch bases with Terry said. You out there, but all your people in solid waste was out there helping you?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, the whole
I
department.
just want to give them all a kudos,
Yes,
even you,
yes, well, yeah,
all right?
but they appreciate it more than me, yeah.
Right.
That's good.
But it was just a team effort, and I was looking at some of that report. Y'all picked up a lot of tires.
A lot of tires, a lot of tractor tires as well, so. And this was my first one to get involved, and I was kind of excited about it, so.
Okay, buddy. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Mr. Melvin?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Shanklin. I know coming off the tail of a hurricane, we still have work to do, but I mean, it's still, it's just been a heck of a job, so thank y'all. I'm curious, I know that there's been some adjustments in regard to garbage and tree limb pickup. So if I have a resident call me, or if I have a resident who's had something in front of the house right now, let's say they just did some work, what should I tell them as far as when the boom truck's making a pass on average?
Well, the boom truck is for river birch, or
Well, just like tree limbs. I mean, just somebody trims the trees, let's say.
well, tree limbs, you just, what happens, you call into the department, and they're gonna put you on a pickup list.
Okay.
Now, when that, if it's a hot item, we can go immediately to it. If not, it goes on a pickup list, and the time frame has been almost like 2 weeks.
Okay, and,
So it should shorten up now, being that we have the big boom trucks in now, it should be a short period, so that.
what about if it's just rubbish? Somebody, tears down a fence or something?
Okay.
Some of that's slacking off, but what about that? Just same thing?
Well,
Report?
fencing, we had a problem with the fencing. I think that was one you called in on the day, I think it was.
Okay.
And we went and picked it up.
Okay.
So as soon as you called me,
Yes, sir.
I dispatched the truck. I think we picked it up in 2 days.
Yes, sir, thank you. I was just trying to wonder what to tell
Yeah.
folks what the
Yeah.
turnaround is, but,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Jones?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shanklin, job well done. One question, tires, is that gonna be a continued base, or, because like in Berrydale, I'm getting a lot of tires every day, so,
The tires, Mary there, they can take the tires over to the fish field office.
so I call,
The limit, they can take them, the limit used to be 5, but now DEQ said anything under 19, anybody can take them into the field office, and we'll accept those tires. So
okay.
anybody can take them.
Most of the time, they're throwing them on the side of the road and leaving, so,
Yeah, but we're not gonna pick the tires up unless the field guys goes in and has to dig a ditch, and they'll bring them out. They'll bring them either to the racetrack or bring them to Thibodeau. That's
All
where
right.
the 2 tires is right now.
all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Otan?
Yeah, and that's for residents, not businesses. I was here one time when a
Right,
guy
exactly.
pulled up with about 100 tires in his trailer, and it's a guy that had got a tire shop down the road, and, unfortunately, though, he was gonna probably go throw them at the end of a road if we didn't take them. Anyway, I just wanted to comment, Bo had mentioned about, trees, and I know I've been overwhelmed the last few weeks with, the whole, debris stuff all over the place, and unfortunately, a lot of it in ditches and being set to fires, et cetera. But I have one constituent, actually I have 2, that have probably about, I'm going to say without exaggerating, 5 truckloads, probably 20-yard truckloads of trees that they've piled on the side of the road, and they expect to get picked up. So can you comment, when you said that, yeah, if you call, we'll put on the list, generally 2 weeks, somebody puts that amount of debris,
Well,
and you probably know who I'm talking about, but, I mean, can y'all comment? Because I want to clarify that to the public. When you start putting that amount of trees, it's going to take a long time.
So it was on my list after this. So the debris contractors have mowed back in, right? We told you guys that was gonna happen. They're gonna be here probably through the end of June. River Birch is still working Highway 90 North because there's not a whole lot of large piles on that section. If they're coming across a large pile, whether it be a fence, somebody cut down a tree, something like that, they're marking them, and then we're gonna route a truck back up there to grab that stuff. For the time being, if somebody stacked a truck pile of trees, it's probably gonna be grabbed by the big boom truck. But what people need to remember is that after this debris thing is over with at the end of June, if you cut down a whole tree like that, it's probably not gonna be picked up. Like your contractor needs to do that, or if you're cutting it yourself, you need to figure out how to haul that thing to either River Birch or the transfer station behind the Chinese restaurant. Because the $15.89 you pay a month for garbage collection doesn't cover an entire tree, right? That's not what that program is designed for. If you trim a tree, stack, a couple of limbs by the side of the road, of course River Birch will grab it, but the program was never meant to pick up that vast amount of trees. And we run into it every year, and it's something we kind of tend to deal with. Sometimes River Birch grabs it. Sometimes we go back to the homeowner, especially if they put it in a ditch and they block the drainage. We typically send Mr. Passman and he knocks on the door and we make him clean it up. But that's going to be the run for the next month and a half while the debris guys are still here.
Thank you, President Chasson. Mrs. Chasson.
Okay, the debris pickup for storm debris. We still have a lot of houses and streets down in our area, mine and Daniel's districts, with homes being torn down and put to the road. A lot of these people doing it themselves. They are working through their insurance company. When they call me that they have this debris on the side of the road, am I calling this in?
No, God, Lord, no.
We have someone who's making sure it's, because like, they're telling me street numbers where it's, piles just adding up.
So after Easter, WIT, who's a debris monitor, came back in and mapped the entire parish. So we know where the piles of debris are, right? They wrapped that up a week or probably ago, right before the debris trucks came back in. So unless they put it out in the last 2 days, it's already on the list. And then as these guys are going street to street, if they see stuff putting back out, we're gonna be back and picking it up. We're gonna be here, like I said, until the end of June. I think June 24th is the exact date. So yeah, if you get like a pile of tree limbs in your North Lafourche, yeah, you could call Sam and let him know, and we'll send River Birch to pick it up. If you anywhere Highway 90 South, it's not worth the constituents calling you or me or even the office. We know it's there and we're gonna come and get it. It may take us a couple of weeks to get to it while they're processing it, because we're starting south coming north, but we know where they are and we're gonna get to it. And again, I want to reiterate that if you're doing it yourself, put it by the road. If you have a contractor, that contractor is responsible for hauling it off. There's an issue with this big old huge tree pile up in, I think it's in Councilman Melvin's district. We know a contractor cut it, we know it wasn't storm damage, but they still expect us to pick that stuff up. That contractor should have picked that up to begin with.
Thank you, Mrs. Chasson.
just
Thank
wanna-
you, President Chasson. Different spelling, no relation. Mr. Shanklin, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate on what you said. So what's happening right now, we got a pretty good system now. What happened, you call it in, we send it to River Birch. They go out and say they can't pick it up, then they get put on the heavy list. They send it to us, we send it to WIT, and WIT send it to DRC.
Mr. Melvin.
So that's,
Real quick, I just want to make sure, so I know the rule used to be, of course, and if there's an update, hey, just let me have it, because I know we used to, if the resident did it, parish would pick it up, but we know what's happening. People hiring tree trimming companies, and they put it in the road, and they might have moved the branch and saying they did it. I get it. So, I don't know, a month ago, I hired a lift from Rico, and I did 2 trees. My brother-in-law did 2 trees, but I mean, we were up in the lift with pictures. But my point is, I know that there's a pile, and I wanted to know, number one, if this particular pile is a state or I'm sure it's a state, but good luck, Charlie. I mean, it's right at Klein Peter. People having trouble pulling. That's the one you're talking about? Okay, because I mean, there's piles all over.
I see it every day, yeah.
And we're still, when the debris guys come back in, we're picking up the state routes. DOT's not coming back. That monkey's on our back now. So we're gonna pick up the state routes, and we'll probably end up picking up that pile. I'm pretty sure they qualify.
Can we send them a bill?
We could if you really wanted to. But I think and Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, and Dylan may know this too, in the actual contract with River Birch, there's a certain cubic yardage that we pick up with the grapple truck. It's like 2 or 6 or 5 cubic yards. It's not a whole lot.
I think I was told it was 5.
Yeah.
Didn't we go up? I think we went up on that, right?
Yeah, 2 yards per week. That's
Yeah, 2 yards, yeah. But right now, we're gonna try to pick up everything. I mean, these guys with DRC, man, these guys they're already moving fast on this stuff. So we're not discriminating on piles. If we can pick it up, we pick it up.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Lorraine.
Yes, I talked to a councilman from the town of Golameta today. In fact, he called me. They went down the street, Marshland Street, and he lives more to the back, but they never made it.
Well, they probably couldn't get down the tree. So what they've been instructed is that they may have to unhook and reposition and stuff. They know about that already. Maybe the street's not.
I'm just telling you what he told me, that
Okay.
they were there, but they never went all the way to the back. Tell them that a street ends at the end of a street,
Okay.
not before.
Well, you know these guys from Wisconsin and all that kind of stuff too, so they don't know these little.
Okay.
You know these little.
Thank you,
but they've been
Mr. Lorraine.
instructed,
And thank you, Mr. Shanklin, for that information.
Okay.
Mr. Lafourche.
Just real quick, while we're talking about debris operation and people skipping piles, I just want to be clear with this. We are direct hauling all of this debris out right now, and the landfill is only open Monday through Saturday. But in an event for them to run 7 days a week, they're going to have to haul vegetative debris on Sunday. So you will see them picking piles. They will be pulling only vegetative debris on Sunday, and they will be focusing on C and D, or construction debris, for the majority of Monday through Saturday. So if you do have residents calling you saying they're skipping piles, that's the reason. We're trying to operate 7 days a week, and the landfill is not operating 7 days a week. We're also doing where the landfill is closing at 5 p.m., so these guys are working till sundown and having a loaded truck ready to go to landfill at daylight. So they're dumping at daylight and then moving back in. With that being said, and us not operating DMS sites, we are going from 2 trucks to 5 trucks early next week.
Thank you, Dylan.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Shanklin. Moving on to item O, questions for the administration. Anybody with any questions? Mr. Lorraine.
Yeah, I got, we talking garbage, trash, what about the recycle bins? There are some people in this parish that really highly on recycle. And I know it's expensive, but
Yeah.
are they gonna put them out?
I never would have thought recycling was that big of a thing, but I even get caught about it at church on Sundays. My problem is still, we have so many people dumping weird stuff. I'm afraid to put those bins out there, and we end up, because what's gonna happen, Mr. Lorraine, is that, you know as well as I do, somebody's gonna go dump their crawfish peelings or a battery or an old nightstand in that thing, and then when it gets to the recycle facility, they reject it, and then it's gotta go to the landfill, and we pay by the cubic yard and not the ton.
But you should draw a line somewhere, because eventually they could do that all the time.
I should, and look, believe it or not, it happens more often than not. If I had Mr. Shanklin pull those numbers, we would probably all be shocked at the number of stuff that actually ends up at the landfill and not the recycling facility.
Because I got people asking me every day about the recycle, and I hate to tell them, but I says, it's coming, it takes time.
And I don't really have a good answer. People keep asking me too, and I don't know what that happy medium looks like. I don't know if we do it now, if we're gonna see a whole bunch of stuff. I don't. So we've been hesitant to put it out.
Okay, one more. Give me some good news on the Levying boat launch.
So we opened, it was on my list, we opened bids today. We have an apparent low bidder. Joe P is gonna review those bid tabulations tomorrow morning, and we're gonna talk to him about what the time frame looks like for them to start. So we have a contract that's set. It's just a matter of working out the details.
Thank you, Mr. Lorraine. Got something, Terry? All right, Mr. Jones.
I got a question. Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
about a year ago, we spoke about consolidating the road sales tax. Y'all did any consideration on that, or
Yep.
came up with some?
Yep, so as you guys remember, we hired Dr. Richardson, who kind of laid out a path forward. I think Councilman Otey and Councilman Grove were part of the local steering committee. That steering committee met, it was after the hurricane. It was, we're in May, so it was probably right in the beginning of January. So Assessor Thibodeau is running some numbers for us on the ad valorem side, what that looks like as far as drainage districts, because I'm not stopping at road districts. We're gonna look at drainage districts too, and looking at what it looks like to consolidate those and the road districts. I think Mr. Block left, but we met with Mr. Block and Mr. Ryan, who do that sales tax work for us, to kind of look at what those ballot items would look like. So we have a little bit more homework to do, but I'm hoping to have something maybe in July to start fishing out to you guys to see if it's something we really want to tackle, and then putting it on an agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Lorraine.
Yeah, I just want to comment real quick that the parish went for a road sales tax 5 times parish-wide and it failed. I was one of the ones that came up with the idea on a district tax. A district tax was approved from point A to point B. Don't come here and try to tell me you want to merge everything, because you got to go to the people of road sales tax 2 only. This council can't do that. That tax comes up in 2027. So, you want me to tell you if it was parish-wide? We'd still have some Cheryl roads in South Lafourche today. We don't have any, because we passed the district tax where you couldn't put your hands on it. So don't try and do it. It ain't gonna work.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman.
Lorraine.
Mr. Lorraine, we going back to the people. I asked him for an update on it. And if it can go back to the people, my vote is to go back to the people. It's not what Daniel said, it's what the people are gonna say.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. President.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is probably why we'll never unify this parish. Anyway, just a couple of more project updates. The Race and Rec facility, I know there was some
Hey,
concern.
let me go to item P.
I'm sorry, sir.
Parish President's final comments.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
We had a meeting today with some folks from FEMA, the contractors who did the sod work at the Race and Rec facility. I think there was some concerns from the soccer association. We realized that part of it was due to a lack of watering and the sod kind of shrunk up. But they're gonna take the next 2 weeks, fix the whole host of issues, and we're gonna revisit the site with them in 2 weeks, and kind of figure out what that looks like. I touched on the Olivia boat launch. We have a meeting tomorrow morning with the contractor to start on the Golden Meadow Library demolition. So we're gonna be meeting with SBL Construction, who's the low bidder tomorrow morning to walk through that with him. If you guys noticed, I sent an email out, I think it was the end of last week, about the state's sheltering program. So everybody who's in the IDA sheltering program, campers, that program was always supposed to be a temporary program. It was supposed to be the bridge between FEMA coming in and you transitioning back into whatever your permanent house solution is. That program, as it stands today, is winding down. So in case, and I wanted to say it for the public so they could hear it too, if you guys get any calls, and as I'm sure as the phone calls begin, we're gonna get some calls in the office as well, they're beginning to call those survivors and ask them what their long-term plans are. Whether or not FEMA will overtake that camper in the FEMA's program, whether or not they're gonna be put into a FEMA mobile home unit, or whether or not their house is gonna be ready in time for them to move back into their permanent residence. So if you do get any calls, they are by no means kicking people out. They're just starting that process to figure out where they are in their recovery, so they can work that out. We have on May 25th, we are gonna hold our annual hurricane prep meeting with all the agencies. I think those calendar invites tomorrow are probably gonna go out to you guys, so if you can make it, it's at 10 a.m. here in the council chambers. We're gonna have all the sheriff, the port, the fire departments, all the different entities to talk through, excuse me, not only a hot wash of last year, but upcoming preparations for this year. Evacuations are gonna be a critical discussion for us because we know we have some 2,000 people in different sheltering options, so what are we gonna do with those guys? I wanna give a shout out to Chief Devin Didon and all the fire departments that participated in the training this last weekend at the Delta Farms boat launch. When the parish purchased that property years ago, it came with an old derelict house that was derelict to begin with, and then the storm kind of messed it up. So we actually used it for the fire departments to do a live burn exercise with some really good training for those guys. So I want to take the time to thank them for that. I mentioned the inmate crew already that we're going to be working with. It's going to look at grass cutting. You're going to see a supplemental come through for the the traffic calming devices that have been approved over the last couple of months to interject some additional funding in there so we know we can purchase all of them. We've talked to the sheriff's office about actually using inmate labor to install those. So we're only tying up one guy from a field office and not 7 trying to put these things in the ground. And they've been really receptive to that. So we're going to work through that and hopefully get those on the ground. I told Dylan today that once that supplemental is passed, then we can cut a PO to the traffic calming people to get those ordered. So hopefully we can get them down before the end of the summer. And finally, we're starting, Robbie's been working on this project. We're starting a series of town hall meetings across the parish. The first one is tomorrow night at the Port Commission's office in Galliano at 6 p.m. So if anybody's interested and wants to come from the public, it's really just, it's a listening session for us to talk about post-IDA recovery in a lot of ways. Not so much about housing, but where we are with things like the recreational facilities, the pump stations, the buildings, the South Lafourche complex, stuff like that. And then just listen to people who have any specific concerns about drainage or stuff like that, so we can start to put together a list. We're gonna be bouncing around. I don't have all the dates. I don't think Robbie's finished setting them yet. But we'll be doing that over the course of, I think, the summer. So with that, I'll take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Melvin.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, I just wanted to say that as a proud native of LaRose and resident of Thibodaux, I believe the parish can unite, and we're not Alabama and Auburn over there, okay?
doubt.
So, I mean, we have a lot of hope here.
And look, guys, this, when we present this to you in the form of some ballot language, and we know we're gonna have to go to the voters, Daniel, and it's gonna be written in a way that, you know, Road A is gonna have to merge with Road 2, the whole parish is gonna have to vote on it. And if one section doesn't vote for it, then the whole thing fails, right? Same thing with the drainage districts. But I think it's something that can work. I don't think it's South Lafourche taking Thibodeau's money, and I don't think it's Thibodeau taking South Lafourche's money. I think that most of the streets in this parish have been paved at least twice, at least in my 36 years on this earth. And do we have some overall work to do? But you combine what that sales tax can bring at a lower rate, because now we're collecting it parish-wide. I think you can collect more money on a lower scale and ease up the burden on the taxpayers. Same thing with the drainage district when we look at the ad valorem taxes we pay. And then my other big push, and I'll say it now, I've talked to you most about it, is looking at solid waste. And do we take solid waste from a sales tax to a user fee, where you pay it once a month on your water bill, and we reduce that 7/10 of a penny down to 3/10 of a penny, where all we use it for is nuisance abatement, tall grass, stuff like that. I think it's time we have those discussions. And look, at the end of the day, if the voters don't vote for it, then that's what it's about. But we at least owe it to them to try.
Thank you, Mr. Melvin. Mr. Araby.
Mr. President, you were giving some update on some reports, and I didn't hear any updates on the ones I have right here, but these are some projects that we had going, before Ida.
Yep.
And I was wondering where we're at now, 9 months later, with our morgue. Do we have any plans for the morgue?
Yep, so all the building projects are ongoing. They've all been assigned to architects. I don't know exactly where they are with that particular one in the design process. We've met with the coroners a couple of times to talk about, can we leave the morgue intact while we tear down the rest of it, or should he move his autopsies to somewhere else, either a funeral home or to Terrebonne? But yeah, all the building projects are ongoing. We should have the roof portions of the bigger projects, the Matthews, this building, Thibodeau, the DA, the courthouse, out in the next probably month or so. We're gonna look at a couple of smaller projects inside the courthouse and here to get portions of those buildings that were completely destroyed up and running, so we can shift people back to where they're supposed to be. But all of that stuff is ongoing.
What about the Rodeo concession stand?
So we as you know, we had what was supposed to be about a $400,000 concession stand. It had one bidder. The low bid was $907,000. So needless to say, that project got shelved pretty quickly. But we're working through, we went back to the rodeo, the roping club and talked to those guys about a metal building. Should be a little bit cheaper. So we're working down those options and getting pricing. And I will also mention that I informed Councilman Araby and Councilman Otan today. I guess this has been an ongoing project for about 8 years, I guess. But it's a floating dock and a dock under Highway 90 near the Tourist Commission building. That's a scenic overlook project. That crane was moved in yesterday, and I think they started doing some initial work. They didn't start working today.
It's just there.
It's just there. I didn't go that far north today. But the project is started. Baker Pile Driving has started to move some stuff in, so we should be ready to, as Councilman Otan likes to put it, P-Rog races in October.
Push it for it.
Yep.
Last question about the ag building, tearing it down.
Yep, so Duplantis is almost done with the specs to bid that project out, so we're gonna have that completely out the way before their livestock show in November, and then work with Teddy to put up some tents or something so they can still have that
Yeah,
facility.
because that's coming right around the corner again, and we kind of told them that's what our plans were, so
Yep.
I don't want to stick with y'all to make sure we get it done. Thank y'all.
And also the first, I guess the first set of the project for the Lockport Community Center, that's kind of our test project because it was very easy to put together because it was so new to bid out the re-roofing and the gym floor replacement. We had the pre-bid last Monday. I think bids get open next week. So that'll give us some idea of what pricing looks like these days with contractors as far as roofing materials. So we're working closely with that rec district to figure out how to stage that project.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Araby. Mr. Lorraine.
Yeah, the garbage tax was on the water bill years ago. We took it from the water bill and we passed the sales tax. Nobody likes taxes, but a sales tax is the fairest tax for everybody. And you want to talk about United? When we did that, Golden Meadow came with us, Lockport came with the parish, and Thibodeau says we're going to do our own. So that's United? Think about that. That's no United. That was a big chance to be united. And Thibodeau says we're going to take care of ourselves. And that's what they did. And don't forget, they got a 1 cent sales tax over here and a half a penny over there because we were very conservative. We gave back a half a penny to the people.
That's so nice. But explain to me one thing, Mr. Lorraine. How is a sales tax fair for everybody when you have a business who doesn't get the luxury of garbage service but has to pay a tax for it?
I compare a sales tax with a property tax. The property tax is very unfair because people all get to vote, and the ones that don't pay it vote for it, and the ones that gotta pay it probably vote against it. So a sales tax, if a guy's coming in through the parish and buys a bag of potato chips or get a McDonald's hamburger or whatever, he pays. And that's where we collect a lot of sales taxes at the Fouchon, because there's a lot of people coming in to go to work over there. And they get some gas and they get something to eat, and they may even sleep in a hotel, I don't know.
So-
They can't sleep now, we ain't got none.
So I'm not gonna belabor this, Mr. Chairman, I promise, but it's fair to charge an out-of-town person or a business an increased sales tax for something they never get to use.
Well,
That's fair.
When you go to Terrebonne and buy a suit, a coat and tie, you paying that sales tax?
But it's not for garbage collection, they have a use.
It's for a lot of things. It depends on what it's for. You ain't gonna win with me on this one.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lorraine. Mr. Melvin?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to wind up with this real quick, and that is, look, I mean, I'm talking about, I have hope in the people in the parish, because we all have to be in this together. And I'm not campaigning, but on my card, I said, we're all in this together. And at the end of the day, we are. We're all in this parish. Now, I have hope in the people, but God first. Thank you. And it's not just about taxes.
Item Q, adjournment on a motion by Mr. Otan, second by Mr. Arabi, that with no further business, the Lafourche Parish Council regular meeting on May 10th, 2022 be adjourned. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes with 8 yeas, 0 nays, 1 absence being Mr. Adams at 6:45 PM.